So you can see it has a different icon. You can see it over there. It has a different icon. By the way, I'm using the material 3 icons. Let me show that to you. It's atom rather. So it's the atom icons. This is what I'm using. So that's why I've got these beautiful things in here. So I could just paste that in here, import mocktail, and import the authentication repository. And in each file, we can just simply import that authentication stuff. So in here, we can go ahead and say that the void main, right? Remember what we did. First of all, we need the I think the repository. So authentication repository, repo repository, and we also need the use case. In this case, we need to get users use case, and we do the setup. We need setup async. No, we don't need async. Give me father. So we come in here. We say repository will be equal to, we're instantiating the repository first because the use case depends on it. So the use case would take that in its constructor. So before we create the use case, we create the repository. Let's go ahead and do that. Mock auth repo. This is what I mean. So when we do the use case, will be equal to get users. It will ask for a repository. If we hadn't already instantiated it over here, it will throw an error. Let's see. If I go ahead and pass it that repository, you can see it says the late local variable is definitely unassigned at this point, meaning we haven't assigned it a value. So else we assign it a value. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and say test. Right, its description should, remember that in the previous one we were saying it should call. Where is it? Where is it? Where are you? Where are you? It should call the authrepo.createUser. In that case, we weren't returning anything. It was returning void. So that was why I left it with just one functionality. So over here, we're testing that it should call the, no need for the, authrepo.getUsers, right? And it should, and return lists user. So after that's done, let me go ahead and format this. Right, so now we start by arranging. Let's arrange by stubbing. Let's stub and hijack the president's response to this time the get users. So whenever, let me have that so it imports mocktail for us. So whenever a higher order function calls you, Mr. President, repository.get users, it doesn't take anything, right? So we can leave that empty. But then answer with an invocation, which we don't need, we don't care, Mr. President. But we could go ahead and say, what do we want the president to tell them? We want it to give them an emptied list of users, or since we've already created an empty version of the user class, we can just simply use that then. So let me go ahead and final test response will be equal to a list of user.empty. Right, so now we don't have to instantiate them, so we can go ahead and say return a right, because it will return a right version of it, so t response, which is a list of users. Now we can act, and for our act of the day, we're going to be forcing this person, we're going to be blackmailing this person result, await, Mr. Use Case. We're saying go ahead and make the call, Mr. Use Case. don't use anything, Mr. Use Case, and we can expect that the result of that call will be a right. Now, you might think that equals const right dynamic on the left, and on the right we have a list of user, right? And in here we will have the T response. Now we want the result to be equal to that, and you might think that this would work. Let's go ahead and run that test. That works, so we are getting the response that we're looking for. So let's go ahead and verify that this man did in fact call the president. So repository.getUsers actually got called, and it got called once. We don't want it to get called more than once. We also verify no more interactions with the president. Have you reported me to the president? Use case. Let's go ahead and run that. That should work perfectly. Beautiful. So now we're sure that both of them are working perfectly. Both the create users and the get users are working exactly as we want them to. Right, so that's it for our use case. The use case is done, its test is done, the domain layer is done.